Hello again. If you saw my first video, you should probably know what I feel about downtown. And if you've ever been downtown, you will probably have noticed all of the multi-story paved parking lots that are built just to service the thousands of cars that drive in and out of here every day. And if I'm looking a little bit sweaty, it's because I biked here. Fucking car. If I'm looking a little bit sweaty, it's because I biked here. But I'm not here to talk about just any parking lot. I'm here to talk about a very special one. This is a 1 million square foot behemoth known simply as the Gulch. Today on the show, why it got here and why it hasn't been redeveloped yet. Alright, I think I'm going to invent a new jingle for this show because I know I'm going to be saying this a lot. It's because of railroads. Thank you. No, railroads figure into the Gulch's history as well. If you look at the Sanborn maps, you're going to see a lot of railroad tracks. And a quick side note, you're also going to see these things that kind of look like the Globe Theater or like the Fujian Tulu, which is a fancy way of saying they are circles. These are railway roundhouses, which serve the dual purpose of being very useful for the railroads and also very hard to pronounce. Railway roundhouse, railway roundhouse, railway roundhouse, railway round. Wows. There's actually a still surviving railway roundhouse just north of the Gulch today. It's called North Yards, and now it's some sort of fancy schmancy office complex. This is drone footage provided very kindly by V12 Productions. He does railway history, railway quirks, and Atlanta history, stuff like that. Very good guy. Go check him out on YouTube right now. One last thing about the Sanborn maps, you can see some markings in some areas of the map that say ravine. Now this is my educated guess as to why the area is called the Gulch. If you look at the Gulch today, you can still see that it lies pretty low compared to the rest of Atlanta. So that is the name down, but why is the Gulch still so undeveloped? And what is with these roads that arch over it and go around and crisscross all around it like some crazy spaghetti mess? Well, to answer that question, we are going to have to get into our time machines and go back a full century, all right? It's the Roaring 20s. I am still dressed the same, but Louis Armstrong is making the best music. F.W. Murnau is making the best movies, and undoubtedly the best way to travel is by train. Atlanta is the rail capital of the South, and if you're going to take a train to the rail capital of the South, where would you disembark? That is most likely Terminal Station. This arabesque palace was served by almost 90 trains a day. It could take you north to New York, to Chicago, south to Florida, west to California, anywhere you wanted to go. This 1949 photographic aerial survey shows you just how much space they dedicated to the passenger platforms. It seems crazy that this was ever built in Atlanta, considering how much we love cars. Actually, if you look at the parking lot out front, there's only about 35 spaces. Naturally, Atlanta drivers found some creative ways around this parking problem. Speaking of cars, imagine your traditional railway crossing. You might get stopped by one of those things that go ding, 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 ding. Have to wait for the train. It gets kind of bumpy. Well, think about that, but 15 times over, and you're driving a Model T, and it's the 1920s, and it's hot, and there's no AC. It's gonna suck. So basically what Atlanta did to combat this problem was they literally built the city 30 feet up in the air with a series of viaducts. Downtown Atlanta is still above ground level today. If you're on street level, you're not on ground level. There's a whole underground complex beneath you. Atlanta was actually really proud of these things. For some reason, there were full color postcards printed up of these. So I guess if you lived in Atlanta, you could like tell your friends and relatives like what an engineering marvel you live next to. I don't really get it, but apparently there was full buy-in from the citizens because in the coming decades, car ownership soared, rail passenger travel sharply decreased, and by 1972, when Amtrak bought up America's rail passenger lines like so many feral cats from a deceased pet hoarder, Terminal Station was demolished. There's nothing left to do but pave the platforms and put up a parking lot. A parking lot that would serve the Georgia World Congress Center, the Georgia Dome, CNN Center, and eventually the evil Citadel. Alright, that was the 70s. Fast forward 40 years, we're in 2012. President Obama has just endorsed a plan to revitalize the Gulch with the new futuristic sounding Atlanta Multimodal Passenger Terminal, or MMT. Now, as great as MMT sounds, and as much as I would love to MMT, I don't think this will ever happen. Not just because Norfolk Southern, who operates the rail lines on the Gulch today, said it would be impossible to route passengers on top of the freight that it already hauls across the area. It's also just way too expensive for a politician to approve. They are not going to empty out their pockets for something as esoteric as increasing the availability of transportation to low-income individuals. I don't even think they know what that means. And besides, they're going to say, we already have an Amtrak station. Isn't that one good enough? Current plans for revitalizing the Gulch involve a mixed-use development that would bring much-needed improvements to the area, like water and buildings. Yes, the esoteric construction conglomerate CIM Group, based out of Los Angeles, has a plan for the Gulch that they call Centennial Yards. They already have the signs put up, even though it's still just a parking lot. This would be a $3.5 billion project that would create 15 entirely new city blocks, not buildings, blocks. This would be totally paid for by CIM and repaid by the city of Atlanta over the next 30 years by the creation of a special tax zone that would deflect all sales tax generated in the area back to CIM. Now, as much as I would love the Gulch to be anything but the asphalt oasis it is today, I am still skeptical. Why? I'll give you 3 reasons. First, it's a $3.5 billion project. I mean, those things are just begging to go over time and over budget. And where do you think they're going to look for help when they go over time or over budget? It's going to be the municipality that sponsored the project in the first place. I will put money on the fact that sunk cost is going to hit Atlanta and Georgia politicians like an Amtrak Crescent liner. Second off, we already have some inspiration to look to for these types of retail mixed-use districts. Think of Edgewood Retail Zone, think of Atlantic Station in particular. So instead of these beautiful glass facades and modernist, minimalist architecture, you're probably going to get a Target and a parking nightmare. Third, think of other retail districts that might not have fared as well as Atlantic Station over the years. I'm thinking in particular about Underground Atlanta, the Rio, and Gwinnett Place Mall. The Rio wasn't even around for 10 years, it seems like, before it got demolished and a Publix got put up in its place. There's just a certain half-life to retail developments in Atlanta and in American cities in general. If you don't have unwavering support from the population that lives there and unwavering support from the tenants and the landlords, there's really not going to be 30 years for this thing to pay itself off. It's just not going to happen. So I'm sorry, I'm a Gulch pessimist. So there you have it. No planes, just trains and automobiles. Maybe one day this place will escape the development hell it's been locked in for the past 40 years. But until then, you can still come down and have your choice of thousands of parking spots here at the Gulch.